laws of power, and this is law 4, which is say less than necessary. Now, out of everybody in power, the person who I think has said less or says less than anybody is Kanan. Believe it or not, Kanan says less. Basically, I see Kanan most of the time in the series, he doesn't really say much. Like, okay, for example, in book 1, right at the beginning of season 1, right, they were dealing with a situation where the girl was hitting up everybody as much as possible. Kanan didn't really say too much. Even though Ghost would visit him, even though Sean would come across him, at the end of the day, he didn't say too much. Only for things to end up the way they did. And if you didn't see the end of season 1 just yet, I'm not going to spoil it for you. By the time we got to season 2, people were aware of him, they were alert of him, but at the end of the day, he always said less. Now, Ghost was the only person who really could figure Kanan out, as he was the only one smart enough to see how Kanan was doing things. But see, the thing is, though, is that Kanan's the only one who's smart enough to see Ghost as well. See, Ghost and Tommy is Kanan's little brothers, so he know them, but he know Ghost is the one who's smart. Ghost is that little brother who, if y'all coming up, you're the oldest one, he looks at you like, okay, I see what you're really trying to do. And being that you're the oldest, you're like, well, nah, man, something like that. So that's what Kanan is. So when it comes down to it, Kanan always says less. Now, by the time we get into like season 3, season 4, again, we're dealing with Kanan. Kanan doesn't really say too much, but he always doing stuff. Like, for example, he always would talk to Tommy, hear Tommy out. And when he hear Tommy out, he take all that he hears from Tommy and he would put stuff together about Ghost. He would not really say much about what he's going to do. He would talk to Ghost, hit Ghost out. He would say, he'll take all that stuff he getting about Ghost, and he would put it together. He wouldn't say much. The only person I think Kanan talked to the most really was Tariq. That was the only person I really see him talk to the most, and he would actually say some things to Tariq because he's actually trust him. If you look at it with everybody in the series, he take the time to trust everybody. He really did trust Jukebox, but in the end, you saw how things had went with them, where he had to take her out, and he really did trust Tariq, and he tried to trust Sean, but it got to a place where he knew he couldn't trust him. And that's the situation with Kanan. Now, in terms of him, Kanan is always watching, and if you really look at him, he doesn't really say much. He listens a lot, but then he moves around on the listening, and then he does things too. It's a little bit different than everybody else do. He would do things like, fight somebody. He would go out, he'd shoot somebody, do some stuff like that, but that's mainly because he knows some things. So stuff that Tommy or Ghost would share with Kanan, Kanan would sit back and he would hear what they have to say, but then he'd go do something on his own, setting pieces still against Ghost slowly. He just knew he couldn't just do anything really to Ghost like straight up, because he knew Ghost would pick up on him very quickly. Because out of all of them, Ghost was the only one who could pick up on him the same way he was the only one who could pick up on Ghost. So most of the time when it comes down to it, Kanan didn't really say much. Now, the way he began it, like at the beginning with season 1, 2, and 3 was different of how he did things in season 4 and season 5. He was still there. He was still doing his things. And he was still planting seeds, and he is the reason why Tariq turned out to be the way he did, and also the reason why Tariq eventually ended up turning on Ghost and Tasha as time went on. So it's more like a situation where he was planting seeds, or he was just doing things, but it was like no one could see it, right? Because he didn't do it out in the open. He did it very, very much like away, and he would talk to people at different times. That's how Kanan did. He always said less than necessary. He would share what he want to share, or he'd share it whenever he feel like, I should go ahead and say this. That's how the type he is. He's definitely the character who said less than necessary. However, he's not the only one who does that. The only other character I see that says less than necessary is 2-Bit. 2-Bit himself would say less than necessary. He would pick up on some things. He really wouldn't speak on it like that, all of that, but he would say less than necessary. Another thing about 2-Bit, 2-Bit observed Tommy and Ghost. He never really took sides, even though he was with Tommy. He always looked at Tommy like Tommy was the plug. But at the end of the day, he still respected Ghost, and even saw who Ghost was and what level of power Ghost was. So 2-Bit was definitely a person who watched everybody. He watched everybody from Dre. He watched everybody from Kanan to Tommy to Ghost. He saw what it was. He was definitely a character that said less and didn't really say too much unless he felt he should say it. Now, if he felt he could trust you, he would. When he thought he could trust Dre, he said what he had to say. He trusts Scrappy, so he said what he had to say. And when it got to a place where he felt like he could kind of trust Tommy, or kind of trust I wouldn't say it would say Ghost, because him and Ghost interact, but not too much, he would say something. But that's only when he feel like he could trust somebody. So that's pretty much when it comes down to it. 2Bit, I would say Kanan and 2Bit are the ones who said less than necessary. Those two are the ones who definitely did that. And when it comes down to it, to you guys, it is better to say less than necessary, because you don't really need to let everybody know what you're going to do. You don't really need to let everybody know what you're up to. You don't really need to say much about yourself. That's the reason why, personally, I don't really trust too many people. Because at the end of the day, for some reason, you never really know if they really do like what you're doing, or they're really supporting you, or they're against you. So say less, man. Say less than necessary. That's pretty much what I got to say in regards to that. I just want to say to all of you that it is your boy, Bobby Beast here. I just want to say much love, much respect. Hold it down. And one. Hey,